Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. And I'm Hiroaki Natsukawa of Kyoto University. And today I'll be talk about the possibility of information visualization and data analysis for ancient Indian literature. Okay, so I guess most of you don't know me. So first, let me introduce myself. So I'm Hiroaki Natsukawa, and I'm in the visualization laboratory at the Academic Center for Computing and Media Studies of Kyoto University. So in Japanese, Kyoto Daigaku Gakuju Jouhou Media Center. And my research area is information visualization. And information visualization is a study of visual representation of abstract data to reinforce human cognition. So especially I'm studying about visual analytics. So that is a data-driven approach, combining state-of-the-art data analytics and visualization technique to support analytical reasoning. And I'm mainly collaborating with biology, neuroscience, and ecology, so researchers, and developed a new interactive visual analytics technique like this to find a new insight. And around 2 years ago, I met the first speaker, Amano Sensei, and started collaboration and started this Spirits project last April. And so I'm very happy to introduce our project today. Okay. So in this talk, first I'm going to talk about visualization and visual analytics and introduce you a new word. So maybe you haven't heard of this word, but that is exploration. And then I'll explain how we use visualization technique to Indology study. So I'm going to talk about the ancient Indian literature and the visualization tool for them. And finally, I'm going to talk about some research plan using the analysis of hypergraph. Okay, so I'd like to begin with the story of visualization. So we may not be very aware of it, but to get useful information from the data obtained by the measurement and computation. So it's not enough to just have the data, but it's necessary to visualize the data like this. And it's not only when the data is visualized and that is passed through the human eyes and visual system and proceed and interpreted by the brain. So meaningful information and understanding can be acquired. So looking at the data is extremely important. And I would like to show you some demonstration. Okay, so what you see here is a rectangular array of numbers. So here's a question for you. So how many nines are there in this data set? So how many 9 can you find in this data set? So I wait for a while. So I think it's very hard task. And so how about this? It's the same data set. I would like to ask the same question. How many 9s are there in this data? So this is easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you'll find the 10 9s. So even though the numbers are in the same format, by changing the visualization style a little bit, actually just changing the color, and we could get to the answer more efficiently. So this shows the importance of visualization. However, this is an extreme example. So if the problem is to find a number like 9, it would be faster to write a code to count 9 and output it. So don't use our brain and just use computer. So I'm not saying that visualization is the only important way, but the visualization technique is one way to enhance our ability. So let me show you another example. Okay, so we have the data set, X and Y, for categories 1, 2, 3, 4. And for each category, there are quantities X and Y. So to see the characteristics of this data, let's calculate some statistics. So the mean of the X in each category is 9, and the mean of the Y in each category is 7.5, and the mean and variance are the same. And if we take the correlation and if we draw the regression line, X and Y have a strong correlation, and the linear regression line in each categories are the same. But in this case, can we say that X and Y have a simple linear relationship? Or can we say that the data are all generated from the same population? So now let's visualize it. So if we draw a scalar plot of this data set, it will looks like this, and category 1, 2, 3, 4, and data in category 1 is scattered, but we can see some linear trend. And the data in category 2 is not the linear, but it's on the quadratic curve. And so the data in category 3 shows a strong linear trend with one outlier. And the data 4 is different from the other 3. So this is a famous data set called Anscombe counted, Anscombe numerical example. And this demonstrates that the regression line and other statistics are the same, even though the scatter plots are very different. So by looking at the data itself through a scatter plot, we can see the structure of the data, which is not apparent from the statistics alone. So I would like to emphasize that here, the importance of looking at the data itself. So if we modified Anscombe's example, we can also do something like this. So the mean, standard deviation, and correlation are the same, but you can find dinosaur from this data. So that's very interesting. Okay, and getting meaningful information from a single visualization diagram is the not only way. So I mean, it's not that one-way information transfer. So, but based on the acquired understanding, we can add user interaction and analysis using the interactive visualization system. And that facilitates the understanding of the data and the phenomena behind it. So this operation enables us to look at the other aspects of the data and to proceed with the data analysis with the knowledge and provide visual feedback of the results. So in this way, we can add a loop of user interaction. So add a human factors in analysis. So this is the approach of visual analytics, which combines analytics and visualization. Okay. And I would like to show you an example of our visual analytics research. And now I'm collaborating with a biology laboratory, and we're developing a system that supports hypothesis building by interactive network visualization. So we believe that this approach may be useful in the historical science and Indology study as well. So we have seen brief demonstration of visualization and visual analytics so far. So next, I'd like to show you an interesting term that is used in the visualization community. It's exploration. So exploration is a combination word, exploration with explanation. So there are two different ways of looking at the scientific data. So one way is to explore, and the other way is to explain. So exploratory biz means visualization enabling effective data analysis leading to the scientific discovery. And explanatory biz means a visualization used to explain and communicate science to a general audience. So from a technical point of view, there is a strong convergence between these two ways of performing visualization. So because with the rapid development of computers, hardware, software, so large data can be stored in memory and that can be processed and manipulated interactively. And also large touch display with VR, AR devices allowed us to analyze large data interactively. So this approach is useful for not only the domain expert, but also a general audience to explain and communicate science. So interactive visualization tool is useful for domain expert, and the same tool can be used to explain and communicate the interesting result to a general audience. So that's the current trend in the field of visualization. And I believe this idea, so exploration, will facilitate ontology study. Okay, so let's move on to the visualization of ancient India literature. So the goal of this project is examining the origin of literature through the relationship of mantras in the 19 documents, so 19 Vedic ritual literature. So as Amano Sensei mentioned, the Vedic literature, ritual literature of ancient India said to be composed around the BC 1000. And they are composed of religious texts, including mantras, that is secret words. And there is a historical classification of literature, such as schools, and when it was composed, and some geographical features where it was composed. And one mantra is often cited in various texts. So this table shows a classification of the literature. So these are the school, such as Rig Veda, Sama Veda, and Yajur Veda. So this row indicates the time division. So when it is composed. So for example, so RV is composed by the Rig Veda at first time division, and MS, Maitrayani Sanhita, is composed by the Maitrayani at second time division. And there are 19 literature in this data set. And in this data set, one mantra is often cited in various texts. For example, this mantra. So I'm sorry, I can read this mantra, but this mantra is cited in the TS 1.6.1.1 and MS 1.1.2 and KS 1.10 and VS 3.16. We think that this co-occurrence of mantras can be an important cues to get insight about how this literature composed. So first we try to look at the co-occurrence of mantras in each literature. And we have the data set about which literature and which part the mantra are cited. So we made relational database using the SQLite like this. And this has a co-occurrence relationship between the 19 literatures, and it also has a chapter structure of literature. So next, let's see the co-occurrence pattern between literatures. Okay, so what you see here is a relationship between the Maitreya Samhita, MS, and Taittiriya Samhita, TS. So the left figure shows the scatter plot, and where the horizontal axis represents the sequence of the chapters in MS. So here's a MS chapter 1 and MS chapter 3, 4, 5. And the vertical axis represents the sequence of chapter in TS. And the point on the scatter plot are mantras. So you can see the, for example, the certain mantra is cited in the MS in this chapter and cited also in the TS in this chapter. So lots of mantras are cited in both MS and TS. So interestingly, we can see this diagonal co-occurrence patterns. So which means that some mantras appeared in RE chapter of MS are also appeared in RE chapter in TS. And some mantras appear in later chapter of MS are appear in the late chapter in TS. So we can understand the MS and TS have the same structure from this diagonal pattern. And we can also see the other non-diagonal co-occurrence pattern here and here. Okay, and the right figure shows the parallel coordinate plot. So left and right axis, a vertical axis represent the sequence of the chapter in TS and MS respectively. And in this plot, lines are mantras. For example, this green mantra is cited in this chapter of TS here and this chapter MS here. So the diagonal pattern in scalar plot is depicted as a horizontal line and a parallel coordinate plot. Okay, and so first of all, we developed the tool for visualizing the co-occurrence of mantras. So this tool interactively visualizes pairwise co-occurrence relationships among the literature with scalar plots and parallel coordinate plots. And we can select the literature in this table, and we can check the co-occurrence relationship using the two kinds of plots. And we can also check the geographical features of literature using this map. And so it shows MS, so blue one is related to this blue area. And these two graphs are linked together. So we can explore the co-occurrence structure using this tool. And I think Amano Sensei are going to report this relationship in her next talk. So I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, we developed this visualization tool to explore the co-occurrence of mantras. However, we have several challenges. So first one is that we need to consider the categorical information in mantras. So some mantras are related to the certain ritual event. So we need to consider both co-occurrence structure and ritual event information at once. And the second challenge is that the 2D scalar plot shows only pairwise relationships, but some mantras are cited by more than two literatures. So not just one-to-one relationships, we need to analyze features across multiple references. And second challenge is more crucial one. So we have the research plan to solve these issues. Okay, as I said, we need to analyze features across multiple references. So this time we focused on the hypergraph. The hypergraph is an extension of the graph concept where the link can connect several nodes. So as you know, the general node link graph represent one-to-one relationship where a link can connect two nodes like this. But the hypergraph is a special type of graph, so where a link can connect several nodes like this figure. So the yellow link can connect 4 nodes. And using this idea, co-occurrence of mantras can be modeled as a hypergraph with the literature as nodes, TS, MS, PS, KS, and the mantras as links. And various phenomena are modeled as standard graphs, node link graphs, but this time the co-occurrence can be modeled more accurately as hypergraphs. So this model, I think, makes sense, but it's more complex. So we need to handle with some scalability and interaction issues in terms of the visualization. And we need to design a visual representation and interaction to analyze the relationship modeled as a hypergraph. Okay, so I will introduce some related work. So in the field of visualization, there is several related work to handle with hypergraph analysis. And Baravidia et al. Proposed a time-varying hypergraph representation called PowerBiz. So their visualization tool was used for the French historian's analysis of the role of Marie Boucher, who is a female merchant in the 16th and 17th centuries. And same as ancient Indian literature, they did the long and complicated data generation process and finally generated data set showing which merchant is mentioned which document. And they model them as hypergraph and adopted this kind of design to visualize hypergraph structure. And the nodes are arranged vertically. So in this case, nodes are merchants, and nodes are arranged vertically, and the links are connected vertically. And this is called a biofabric style of graph. So for example, of mantra, some mantra is cited in those 4 literatures, and that is depicted like this in the biofabric style. Okay, the representation of the PowerBiz, so biofabric style, looks good, but the question is, can it be applied to ancient Indian literature data? So for example, of mantras, we see the co-occurrence of mantras and the number of the rows correspond to the number of literature, actually the number of sections, and the number of the columns correspond to the number of mantras. So the number of literature is 19, but the number of section is large and 3,452 sections. On the other hand, mantra also exists for the around 90,000 links. So it's difficult to see all of them. So for example, the dataset having the 385 rows and 1,383 columns is depicted as a biofabric style like this. And they're not difficult to see, difficult to check because they are too small, and the relationship, the connections are difficult to check. And in our dataset, data has around 3,000 rows and around 90,000 columns. So the it's too busy. So it's almost the same situation as the first demonstration that I asked. So it's too busy to understand. So that's why I concluded that the Power-based biofabric representation can be used for the data interpretation, but we need to summarize the global features in advance of using the biofabric design. So next question is how to summarize the global feature of hypergraph. And in the form of biofabric, the data is represented as a grid style, having rows and columns. And the number of rows is a number of literature, and the number of columns is the number of mantras. So I come up with a high dimensional representation of the data as shown in this figure. So if you recall the scatter plot, we can see the relationship between the MS and KS. Okay, MS and KS. But some mantra is cited in the TS as well. So that mantra is represented as a point in 3D space. So in this way, the mantra can be represented as the point cloud in high dimensional space, where the number of dimension corresponds to the number of literature. And we cannot naturally imagine 19 dimension space, so that is mapped to the 2-dimension using some dimension reduction method. And it's expected that the 2-dimensional pattern represents a similarity of the global features. And this is a way of summarizing the global features of co-occurrence pattern. And once the data is summarized, we can use a biofabric representation for the selected mantras to understand the co-occurrence pattern. So this is our concept or visual analytics of hypergraph. And this is still preliminary results, but I've tried this approach to the 3-dimension co-occurrence data of MS, KS, and TS as a proof of concept. And this figure shows a 3-dimensional scatter plot. So this shows a mantra distribution in 3-dimensional space. And the same as our 2D scatter plot, the point is mantra. So this red point, is only cited by the MS, and the blue point is only cited by the TS, and the green point is only cited by the KS. And we can see some diagonal pattern, and the gray one here is cited by the MS, KS, and the TS. And the yellow one is cited by both MS and KS, but no citation by TS. So if this point cloud is mapped to the 2-dimension using the dimensional reduction method, we can get this figure. So this time we use the TSNE algorithm for dimension reduction. So TSNE is a nonlinear dimension reduction technique that is particularly well suited for the embedding high dimensional data into the 2 or 3 dimension. And I'll skip explaining the detailed algorithm, but we can get this 2D representation. And first we can see the 3 clusters colored in red, green, and blue. And these are the mantras cited by the only one literature, so MS, KS, TS. Okay, and they are separated in 2D space. And we can see small clusters around, but the same color is aggregated into one small cluster. Okay. So next we try to pick up the some small clusters. So there are gray points here in this red area, and these points are located here in 3D space. They have a diagonal pattern to MS, KS, TS axis. So I haven't made biofabric representation yet, but I expect this co-occurrence pattern is depicted like this using the biofabric representation. And if we focus the other points on this point in blue area here, they are located here in 3D space. And then in the biofabric form, we can explore the co-occurrence pattern in detail. And we can see the parallel relationship between the MS and KS, but this tendency cannot be seen in the TS literature. Okay, so this is also a preliminary result, but I've tried this approach to all co-occurrence data. So that becomes 19-dimensional data set. Then we can get this figure by using dimension reduction method. So we can see the several clusters and the small structure around. So the number of mantras, the number of point is around 90,000. So we can see the tiny structure. And we need further analysis, but this small structure could be some cue to get insight about the origin of literature. And those structures found in 2D mapping can be understood using the biofabric representation. And I've not tried this detailed analysis, but I'm looking forward to seeing detail by implementing hypergraph visual analytics system. Okay, so now let me summarize my talk. First, I explained the idea about the visualization and visual analytics. Then I introduced the mantra co-occurrence visualization tools. And in the next talk, I think Amano Sensei will report about some co-occurrence pattern. And finally, I show the future direction about the visual analytics, the hypergraph constructed by the ancient Indian literature. And in the future work, we'd like to design and implement hypergraph analysis and interactive visualization system for that. Okay, so that's all for my talk. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation. Moro Sensei has a question, so please ask a question. Unmute the microphone now.
Yeah, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I have a small question. I'm not a specialist of visualization, so but I'd like to ask a question to make a cluster, a visual. So I don't know the name of the last method of visualization. I'm sorry. So yeah, hypergraph.
Yeah, this yes.
To make a cluster in the hypergraph, I think there may be many methods to calculate the distance or of different texts or mantras. So do you have any do you have any opinion to select the methods of clustering the or calculating a distance?
Okay, thank you for asking, and that's a very interesting point. And I have not right answer, but this time I use TSNE algorithm to for the dimension reduction, and as a distance I use a cosine distance, and I have not tried a lot of distance metrics and a lot of algorithm to reduce the dimension, but in this case, a cosine distance works well because I use this coordinate, so three-dimensional coordinate. So the and the Euclidean distance doesn't mean anything. Or so if we use a cosine distance, we can clearly separate those structure. So in this case, it's the cosine distance works, and maybe other algorithm provide a good separation, but I have not tried other method yet. Yeah. And selection is a good point, but it's difficult. And if we have the correct answer, that would be the good. That would be some measure to evaluate which method is good. But yeah, so I have not right answer right now, but it's good to compare the several method and to see how it looks, how it works. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. This result could match the result of Amano Sensei's philological research, right?
I'm not sure, but yeah, I'd like to discuss with Amano Sensei. So
yeah.
would you have Amano Sensei, would you have any comment for that?
I think it is not. So it is a starting point of discussion. So, but yeah, we can start here with that. And
is your philological analysis of Vedic text different from this visualization?
this fits my feeling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you for asking a question and answering to the question. Does anyone have a question? Oh, okay. Takahashi Kenji-san is asking a question. Please unmute the microphone and ask a question.
Thank you so much, Professor Natsukawa. It was very beautifully made, and I was so fascinated to see how the text can be visualized. And I felt that it is one of the Indian texts' tendency to heavily deutilize the materials that is used in the previous text. So the visualization of the core current seems to be very promising in our field. And I have a very specific question. Maybe this could be answered by Professor Amano or Professor Natsukawa. You showed the scatter plot of the TS and MS, right? And then I felt this co-occurrence very interesting. And then Professor Amano, in previous presentation, she refers to that there's a problem in treatment of the mantra and co-occurrence, the difference between the mantra and Sanhita part. So, and then, sorry, mantra and Brahmana part. So, and then at my first impressions that this shows that this co-occurrence shows that the Maitreya Sanhita and the Taittiriya Sanhita has the similar structure. And then, so maybe, does this kind of structural similarity can be observed in different texts, or is this kind of, similarity in the tendency of the quotations of mantra can be also found in the prose part, that is Brahmana part? Or is there any ways to analyze further about these features? Sorry, my question is very scattered, but I was so fascinated by your visualization. So yeah, if you have anything that maybe Professor Natsukawa or Professor Amano have something to say about this correspondence and some perspectives too for your Professor Amano's further studies, maybe could you tell something about it? Or maybe in the following presentations, Amano-san will be giving some thoughts about it. So yes.
Thank you for asking. So yeah, as you mentioned, the MS and TS has some similar structure, and I've tried MS and KS and TS is similar. I've confirmed those has a similar structure, and but maybe the next talk by Amano Sensei will answer your question. How about Amano Sensei?
Yes. Can we open this too now?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, so you have, okay.
Yes. So the now, which is RV and MS, so we change it's a relationship between the MS and KS. So we can see some diagonal pattern, and MS and TS. So we can see, but for example, RV and TS has no diagonal pattern, and it looks different. And other text. So I'm not familiar with in this field, but yeah, I think it's a starting point for the discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I'm very looking forward to what Amano-san is going to talk about. And maybe may I have one more very small question? Are you going?
Yes.
Do you have any plans to put it online about this? To be shared among the philologists, so that you can use the similar model or not, or that is now confined to Maitreya Sanhita, or is there any ways so that other humanists can also apply for our own studies, or do you have any plans for that?
I'd like to do so, and currently it's not the open to the public. Basically, it's open, but I'd like to.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, open this too, and I'd like anyone can use this kind of visualization too. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great contribution.
I gave the URL in chat box. You can try.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You can try.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There is one more question, but unfortunately time is 5 minutes over. So perhaps
Yeah, we have the discussion part later, so
okay, so
ask it at the discussion part.
Okay, then I'm very sorry to skip the discussion, but now we're going to move on the next presentation,